I want to introduce you to Olivier Momma, the entrepreneur who took the question of why haven't wallets evolved and then created $1 million business from that. 8 years ago, Oliver co-founded Exter, the first trackable wallet. Before launching his idea on Kickstarter, he spent weeks researching and learning from some of the biggest campaigns on the platform. All of this work and research led to his first Kickstarter campaign reaching 4,000% of his funding goal. In this interview, you'll learn the Kickstarter strategies that helped him raise his first $1 million, how to find and work with the right manufacturers to bring your product to life, and how customer feedback has shaped Exter's evolution. I started Business Vibe to share the stories of how people are taking back their life and their freedom by building successful businesses in hopes of helping you do the same. If you found any value out of this, please hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Definitely. Great to meet you, Corey. My name is Oliver. I'm one of the founders here at Exter, and I'm based in Amsterdam. I started this company when I was 22 years old, which is 8 years ago. I grew up moving around a lot, so I was moving from country to country about every 5 years. And moved to Japan for 8 actually. Lived in Italy, Spain, Hong Kong, and really had quite a diverse background with a lot of different cultures and new schools, which also got me into like all these different design aspects and also different hobbies worldwide of moving around and just getting to know different people gives you a more open-minded view of the world. Years ago I started Exter and have been scaling that ever since, and it's been quite the ride.
Can you tell us a little about your company, Exter? What is?
So Exter, we make better gear for life on the go. We started initially with the first trackable wallet. 8 years ago, I was living in Hong Kong, and I noticed that people were paying with their phones in Hong Kong and on the market, like paying on QR codes and stuff. And this kind of stuff didn't exist yet. Like there was no Apple Pay in the Western world, and we'd never seen that before. I was just used to seeing big, fat, bifold wallets. So I asked myself the question, why are people still carrying these fat wallets if phones have evolved so much, but wallets have always stayed the same? So we decided to look into creating the next generation wallet. And we realized that there's a few big issues. Number one being that people lose their wallet, but there was no tracking device out there. There was no AirTag. There was nothing like it. So based on that, made an initial prototype design, created our first launch video, and launched our first Kickstarter campaign, which was the beginning of something big. Today, we have infused this tech into travel products, bags, luggage and stuff, and we're a team of about 35 people spread across the world now.
What did you find out that maybe other people would want these? Where did that validation come from?
Validation was really our Kickstarter campaign. So, of course, your friends are always going to say, yeah, I love it, and it looks cool. But once we realized that thousands of people were buying this product before it was actually produced, we just saw that, okay, this is something like there's an actual need for this product. And, it was an overnight success. We hit about 4,000% of our goal on Kickstarter, and then crowdfunded our first $1 million in the first year.
Oh, good for you guys. What did you do that you found success through Kickstarter?
So we were really just very inexperienced with online marketing. All we had was a good idea and a cool design. And we were Kickstarter fans, right? So we kept looking and benchmarking other top Kickstarter brands. And I think the initial success really came from benchmarking the top 10 funded Kickstarter campaigns and trickling it down into how we designed our own campaign. And if you put, let's say, $5 million campaigns side by side, there's so many similarities in between these campaigns based on how they set up the campaign, the design, the video, how they set up the rewards. It's all very similar. In the end, it's like a proven structure of how to do a successful Kickstarter campaign. You just need to be it's simple observation of other campaigns. And then after that, I would say the flywheel effect of the success was really in the last 15 days when our Facebook ads started taking off. I think about 50% of our revenue came in the last 15 days. And that was all through Facebook ads.
And so I know it was a while ago. You mentioned this was quite a few years ago. Do you remember any specific things that other Kickstarter brands would do that were successful that you kind of copied or took inspiration from?
Yeah, for sure. There's a bunch of cool tricks. It's all about urgency on Kickstarter. So When you look at a graph, like a revenue graph on a Kickstarter campaign, you usually see a big spike at the beginning because that's where you're selling your early bird discounts. Once those run out, you see that it kind of plateaus a bit. And then towards the end of the campaign, when people start feeling that fear of missing out, that's when the revenue grows again. And there's a lot of tricks throughout the campaign to be able to push that urgency. For example, creating different tiers of early birds, which keeps that urgency for a longer period at the beginning, but also towards the end, creating urgency by having these funding tiers that you can get people to order a product if you hit a certain funding goal. And once you hit that goal, they'll unlock new features of the product. So let's say if we hit 300K, we'll add an NFC chip to the product, something like that. And then, of course, there's like the smaller details. It's like there's all these conversion rate tricks that you can do inside of the campaign. Yeah, I don't know if you want to get into the real details of it, but there's so many cool things possible with Kickstarter.
I'd like to go to and kind of hit on your actual hardware. Years ago, because I can remember 8 years ago in technology, it's come a long way in that 8 years. How were you able to make a trackable device back then?
Yeah, so this was definitely a roller coaster, and there were a few different types of technology available at the time, but no one was really scaling it to the masses. And I think we were the first brand to really take it big. Initially, when there was no AirTag out there, and GPS, for people to understand, GPS is a very difficult technology to implement in small spaces like wallets, because you have, first of all, a battery that runs out, and it'll, in that space, like a credit card, it would run out within a day. On top of that, you have monthly costs. So monthly costs are never really an easy thing to convert people to. If they buy a wallet, they don't want to pay monthly for that. So there's just many reasons that GPS doesn't work as a wallet tracker. So we wanted to look at something lighter weight that would still work. And the technology that was available was Bluetooth, but crowd-sourced Bluetooth. So people would connect our wallet to their phone through an app, and whenever it would lose connection, and you could decide what the distance would be, like let's say 10 meters or 5 or whatever, whenever it would lose connection, your phone would get a message and it would tell you where you left your wallet last. And on top of that, then there was other people on this network, right? There's other people that are using Bluetooth, and based on that network, you're able to find your wallet through other people's Bluetooth devices. So it's like a crowdsourced network. And this is like early days tracking tech, right? But it's the best you could get at that time. And there's no like live movement in the tracking, but you wouldn't believe how many messages, even letters we got from customers that were so happy because they found their valuables because of this tracker. Like, it was crazy.
That is amazing that you were able to do that, because yeah, like I said, I remember 8 years ago in the tech, and we have come a long way since then.
Yeah, and to your question of like how we did it, so obviously we linked up with a bunch of really, really smart engineers, some of them based in the Netherlands, who connected us to people in factories in China. With a really bootstrapped and small team, we were able to get this technology into mass production with just one good engineer in Holland and one good engineer in China and a factory.
You found this idea, you saw the validation, you ran the Kickstarter, and you found massive success. So what happened after that? And I think you, like you just said a little bit, you touched on that a little bit. But what happened after Kickstarter? Did you have manufacturing already set up, and what'd that look like?
Yeah, so we didn't have much set up while crowdfunding, which is the crazy part. Like, we were obviously promising a product, and we were very inexperienced business people. We just really believed in this idea, and we knew that if we had enough validation, that we would find the right engineers and the right factories to help us build it. So the next steps after the Kickstarter were very simple. We flew directly to China and stayed at the factory until the product came out perfect. As perfect as we could get it, at least in the first round. So we went directly to China, started factory shopping. So went to many different factories, kind of negotiated them against each other to get a good price, but also just finding the ones that were working with established brands. I think that was from the very beginning our most strategic move, is working with factories that had no sustainability certifications, that were known to work with the biggest tech brands worldwide. Just knowing that these people are trustworthy, because we were also at a lot of like smaller factories that were offering better prices. But we just saw in the way of working that they weren't as trustworthy. They didn't have all the certifications, and it would have been a pain long run. So we went for the more expensive factories, stayed there, like slept at the factories, spent a few months over there, trying to figure this out. And with countless sleepless nights sampling these products, we ended up with our first version.
I suppose if you found a factory that didn't have what you needed, you could sink a lot of money with no return.
Yeah, 100%. And we'd heard a bunch of stories about factories, promising the world, but not being able to deliver. And that's your worst nightmare when there's like 6,000 people waiting for a product.
Yeah. What does that look like as far as cost is concerned to build a first product using a manufacturer?
So we were lucky that we did speak to a lot of experienced business people while doing our Kickstarter campaign, or actually before launching. And we knew from the get-go that we needed a lot of margin to get this off the ground, especially because with shipping directly from China to warehouses in the States, for example, or in Europe, the duties that come on top of that, and then also the unforeseen costs in production and sampling, we knew that we needed a bit of a buffer to be able to make this work, especially because it was a first-time product. So in terms of costs, like the best way to go about it, and this was something that we found through one of our advisors, was go to the factory, talk to them about your end product, and then before producing it or before making samples, request a BOM, bill of materials, and actually look at the entire list of components that they're using. And then based on that, see if that's conforming to the market price. You can find that online, like if these prices are being overstated or not. And then based on that, go back to them and figure out what their margin is. And then that's the part that you can negotiate on. So yeah, you really just break it down into small components.
So you had your Kickstarter campaign, you found manufacturing. What was next? Did you guys decide, okay, this went really well, we need to start running ads, we need to start finding other ways of marketing?
Definitely. So the biggest issue we had in year one after crowdfunding was staying in stock. So advertising wasn't even the problem at that moment, which obviously now 8 years later, everything is turned around where the operations are very smooth and it's a well-oiled machine. But back then, it was just tough to get those products to the warehouse, to expand the colors and keep it in stock because there was so much demand for this product. And we're just, they're really in stage one. And we just didn't have the experience to get everything out to the warehouses quickly enough to feed demand. So next step was starting to build a team. And customer service was the first hire. So keeping our customers happy, I think that's where it starts. After that, we looked into ops. So how do we make sure that our products get produced on time and get delivered to the warehouses on time? And then after that, the next hires were all marketing. So I think from the beginning, like the demand was definitely there, but it was just scaling after the ops were set up. That was a whole new challenge.
Before moving to the next section of the interview, you said something that I'd like to hit on some more. I'm kind of curious about. And you said before you had started manufacturing and while you were working on Kickstarter, you were talking to other business people kind of as advisors. Did you have any specific people you wanted to reach out to? What was kind of your pitch on that for trying to get help, maybe mentorship, if you will?
Yeah, and that's something I always recommend to people that are starting out. Established businesses, especially within the Kickstarter community, are super open to speak to upcoming entrepreneurs with a cool idea. So we were 22 years old. We really were just getting started. And I remember reaching out to a bunch of Kickstarter campaigns just initially there because I knew that was our community and just telling them about our story and about our vision. And honestly, I don't think a single person ever rejected us to have a call with them. Even if it was just one chat to talk about like best practices, every single Kickstarter campaign was open to chat to us because they saw that we were just, young, inspired, ambitious guys trying to put something out there. And this is something I always recommend everyone is really don't be scared to talk to people, like share your idea, get feedback. If you're going to keep it all to yourself, then you're going to make so many mistakes. So these advisors were usually founders of other Kickstarter brands. And then based on that, people that they recommended us to talk to, but also some people from our own network. And at that point, I was just having calls every week with different founders just to learn from their mistakes.
Moving into the marketing aspect, you've already done your Kickstarter. You started production to where you have inventory kind of sitting and you don't have to worry about that too much. What were your initial ideas for marketing Extra after that Kickstarter campaign?
So after the Kickstarter campaign, finally realized, because when we were starting our campaign, we knew nothing about performance marketing. We had no idea how to run Facebook ads. We didn't know anything about Google. We just thought, this community, Kickstarter community, is going to help us fund this brand. But we didn't realize that it takes so much more, also like outside revenue, to make a Kickstarter campaign succeed. I think the initial 2 weeks, about 80% of the revenue was from Kickstarter users, people that were already on the platform. And then towards the end of the campaign, it started growing to like 60% outside traffic, people that we found through Meta and Google ads and influencers and stuff. So we did learn the power of performance marketing during Kickstarter. And so right after the campaign, we got so much press, earned media, like so much media value, that was like the biggest boost. We got featured on, all the big ones like CNN, Discovery Channel, Wired. So that was a huge boost for us. But then we realized there's so much traffic on the website. We need to ride this wave and keep this momentum up with performance marketing. So we started running Meta ads, Facebook ads back then. Based on that, also setting up our Google ads with shopping and making sure that all the traffic that was fed to branded search on Google was being captured by Google ads. And then slowly building out to different channels, like smaller performance marketing channels like Snapchat, TikTok, Reddit, and such. But yeah, I think performance was the first step for us.
How important was content creation for Extra's marketing?
I would say it's probably the single most important thing still at the moment. We figured out once Meta started becoming more difficult to scale, I would say 10 years ago, Facebook was a different story, right? Like you would throw a few ads live and it would work. These days, you're competing against so many brands, so many knockoff brands, and just so much competition on the platform in general that the person that's winning is the person with the most unique, highly converting creatives. So right now, I think we're testing about 50 creatives per week, roughly 40 to 50, including variations, and then focusing on both like UGC, high quality statics, renders, and just making sure that we have really scroll stopping ads, bringing them to a highly converting landing page.
What platforms have you found most effective for you personally? Have you tried just every platform and you kind of want to hit all of them, or?
Yeah, we've been on every single platform out there. It's been a search, I think, to find like supporting platforms. I think like most D2C brands, because Meta's algorithm is just so advanced and it's really been there the longest. I would say Meta is still by far the top performing performance channel for us. After that comes Google, but that's also because it's a supporting channel, right? Everyone that sees you on Meta ends up converting through Google. And then after that, you have just a pool of smaller channels, which all are quite volatile. So they perform at different times of the year. So we have Snapchat, Pinterest, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, and native advertising. All of those have just been small supporting channels that we're not really able to scale as hard as Meta. But at times of the year, we are able to put more spend into it.
How do you handle customer feedback and what have you learned from it?
We take our customer feedback very seriously. We realized a few years back that there's so much value in the heads of our customers. So we took a more proactive approach and just started sending monthly surveys to our loyal customers and realized there's so much interesting knowledge that they have. So they come up with cool product ideas. They give very interesting feedback on how your website should improve for browsing experience. They give in-depth feedback on the products that we would have never thought of because we're quite biased about our product, selling it every day. And we also do customer calls. So we just call random customers and ask them a few questions. And all of these customers are rewarded some kind of a coupon or a free product or something. So it's like keeping that data-driven approach to customer feedback is crucial for us.
So moving toward the kind of end of the interview and the personal insights mindset kind of questions, what role has failure played in shaping your business strategy and how do you frame failure in a constructive way? I like asking this question because I think every entrepreneur has a little bit different of an answer on this.
Yeah. So how do we frame failure in a constructive way? So we've really had our ups and downs over the years. And I've realized that it's the tougher times that we've learned by far the most. And those are the times that you really build resilience. We've had times where our OPEX was way too high for our revenue. And these were times that we realized, okay, it's so important to keep those costs, OPEX, to a certain level and keep that organization clean. Sometimes when you're growing really fast, you don't realize how many costs you're making. You just kind of say yes to every hire, and every platform, every SaaS platform gets added. And it's these times when you're really struggling, when you realize that you need to cut these costs. So these were times that we cut out different SaaS platforms, and we reorganized and just made sure that we became more lean. And then with that, communication to the team, of course, readjusting your targets. So it's never fun when you're not performing. But I think if you can get everyone in the same headspace about realizing that, okay, maybe this is not our best month, but if we do this, this, and this, then we can see another 10% or 20% in growth. And kind of just readjusting your base level to a new level, and having you're always in the know about the changes that you make for this.
Are there any particular books, mentors, resources that have influenced you on your business entrepreneurial journey?
Definitely. So I think one that started to help us out early on was The Great CEO Within. I'm not sure if you've ever read it, but really, really cool book on how to structure your company, how to build a team, and also the initial issues that you may need to overcome as a young entrepreneur and also as a younger company. And for me personally, because I'm a creative director, I really love the book Building a Story Brand. It really dives deep into like the psychology behind telling a story as a brand, and why people start following your brand, and why people get into the story that lies behind your brand.
That sounds like a fantastic book. What advice would you give to someone looking to start their own business?
I think it's quite close to what I mentioned before. So I think benchmarking is probably the easiest and most cost-effective thing you can do when you start your own business. Looking at how other brands have done it before and learning from that, but also talking to people. So schedule a call with a different founder every week and just pick their brain. That's how you're going to learn the mistakes that they made. They're going to give you insights that you never would have learned otherwise. And I think just having an open, not being too closed off with your idea to the world. Because if you just keep it to yourself, you're not going to know what you're missing.
Olivier Momma, thank you so much for joining us. It was so awesome to learn about you and how you built your business, and so many great, valuable pieces of information and advice.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Great to meet you.